Meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kurt?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Nancy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Bob?
Here.
Jay?
Yes. Okay, it's now time for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next thing on the agenda this evening is approval of the minutes from the meeting of March 2nd. That was a regular assembly meeting. I'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved by Member Lynn, seconded by Member Havlicek to approve the meeting minutes of March 2nd, 2015. Any changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Now we need to approve or amend the minutes from March 9th special meeting with the hospital board. I'll entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Lynn to approve the March 9th special meeting minutes. Any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes as well. Now we're to the minutes of tonight's agenda. We need amendment or approval of tonight's meeting agenda as it's presented. Entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah. Second.
Okay. Moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Strand to approve this evening's meeting agenda. Any changes? All those in favor of leaving it like it is, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda will go forward like this. Okay, the first of 5 public hearings tonight is a public hearing, and it's for Joe Aliberti. It's an appeal of the Planning Commission's February 12, 2015 granting of a conditional use permit with conditions to construct a net house at 107 Arness Heights Drive, Lot 4, Bayview Estates, parcel number 201056410. And the way we're going to proceed with this, in the code it says there won't be any public comment on this, but we advertised it on March 4th that there would be public comment. So the people within 600 feet, I believe it is, and there's about 40 of them that are listed in the agenda tonight, will have the ability to speak. But what we'll do first is the appellant, Joe Aliberti, will present his grounds for the appeal of the granted decision. Then Liz Cabrera, staff for the Petersburg Planning Commission, will present her report and recommendations. Then Aaron and Katrina Miller, the owners of the property granted the conditional use permit by the Planning Commission, may present argument. And at that point, property owners directly notified by mail as described in Borough Code 19.92.020, persons who have been entitled to the notice of this original proceedings may speak. And then appellant Aliberti is allowed final argument at that time. And then there will be assembly deliberation after a motion to move forward, and then we'll hopefully take formal action. So with that being said, maybe I could see a show of hands in the audience of people that want to testify to this. Is there anybody, so I could kind of get the number? Okay, Pat, and anybody else? Okay, we won't have to restrict time on that comment then. So, all right, Joe, the floor is yours.
Yeah, how many people did you have that are going to want to testify?
One, Pat Weaver.
Okay, all right.
Is there more?
Yeah, I was just hoping we weren't, could have created it.
Donna?
I guess I'm going to start with, there's at page 2 of the, that packet for tonight. And on page 2, number 2, it says the appellant established the decision is not supported by adequate written findings or findings fail to inform of the basis upon which the decision appealed from was made. And I'm going to go to, actually, I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with number 4 to start with, which is the appellant establishes there was misrepresentation of a fact. And if you will look at page 18 and 19 of the packet, which is the letter from the appraiser. The city appraisal company, it was, he submitted a letter. I never did see this letter prior to the last planning and zoning meeting, but it was referenced quite a bit in the meeting. The first I got it was in this packet. But I find a real, a real issue with this letter and how this letter states how he came to his conclusions that this development would not affect property values in the residential area up there. I can read, I think, the pertinent parts. Anyway, I think it almost I need to read most of the letter, but we'll go through it and try to make it as quick as I can.
Thank you.
It says it was a request by me and I believe the city to see about property values. This issuance of a conditional use permit would have in the Hungerford Hills area, which, number one, it's really not Hungerford Hills, it's Bayview Estates. So we need to get away from that because that is a whole other area than this one. And the main point of concern is whether issuance of the subject permit would adversely impact the value of the said property, my property, and other properties across the street or next door or in the neighborhood. Okay, and he said, okay, specifically this permit would allow for the construction and operation of a net storage facility. It is my understanding that all operations associated would be of an interior nature, i.e., no outside storage of materials would be utilized. Okay, we do have utilization of outside storage in this permit that is if it does get issued. So that's the first issue. Now, the next issue is he completed 2 site inspections of the area last week when considering current development in the immediate area, which is a construction business in close proximity. It is my opinion the issuance of the subject permit would not adversely affect property values. In fact, and this was relied heavily on the Planning and Zoning Commission, as okay, now we got this. This is great because now it's not going to affect Joe's properties, and we can say okay. In fact, the proposed use of the property appears to be of lower impact, as the immediately abutting area currently has a significant amount of heavy equipment storage and other commercial industrial materials. It is my opinion this would have greater impact on surrounding properties than the contemplated usage. And if we know what he's talking about, he said, then he said, however, this land utilization, I'm going to stop there. Okay, so what he's saying is that we have a residential lot right next door. It abuts this lot, right? That has a bunch of commercial stuff on it. Well, his assumption is completely wrong because that lot is a residential lot that the city of Petersburg or Borough or city or whoever for 4 years has been trying to get that stuff moved off of that lot and has not accomplished it. Okay, so his whole premise of it's not going to harm my property values is based on the fact that, geez, that's over there and this is not as bad as this, so we'll just let this happen because, it's way worse over here, so it's not going to adversely affect the property values. But the whole assumption could be thrown away because that property is residential property. It's just, his whole, I don't know what this guy, if he looks at maps or how long he's been an appraiser, but it's really a horrible letter as far as I'm concerned. And then he also says, however, this land utilization predates residential development in the area. And I believe you could talk to Joe or there's other people or Liz, whoever wants to check this out. But I've been going up there for a while, and that house that was built by Ben, originally Ben, what was it? Phillips? Yeah, Ben. Up on the hill was and that was a residential home. This construction equipment being here does not predate that home being built. That home was built quite a few years ago, way before this 4-year thing that's been going on, this fight for the property that's, that has things on it that it shouldn't. Okay. And then he said something about the roadway acts as a natural buffer between residential and heavy commercial usage, which he's talking about, that Arness Heights, not Hungerford Hill, but Arness Heights, which he thinks Richard's lot is okay, is now we've got a buffer zone between that commercial use and the rest of the residential lots, but it is actually a residential lot next door to another residential lot. So, okay. And he goes on to say all of his, as a former planning director and university research fellow in rural, urban, and regional planning. I do have experience in addressing matters of this nature. I find it very important, and it would be nice that he did his homework, I would think, that since this is for the issuance of a conditional use permit, that specific conditions be stated and agreed upon by both the issuing agency, the borough, and the applicant. Further, it's equally important that the applicant abide by the established conditions and the borough strictly enforce the conditions, that violations may be quickly addressed and adjudicated. Conditions may include, yet not be limited to, site obscuring fencing, we all know that stuff, and how big you can build the building, and all those good things. So, I don't know how to read this letter. To me is basically something that we really should not even be listening to, because the fellow doesn't even have his facts right. In my opinion, this is a residential area. It was zoned as a residential area. It is set up. I'll go back to now the main purpose of what a residential area is, and it's on page, where is it? Page letter 38. Repeal. I'm sorry. Give me a second here. It's towards the back here. It's just the basic. It's the first sentence in the requirements of a residential area. And I'll go back. I've got it here in my letter. Actually, it says the number one stated purpose of a single-family residential zone is to provide a sound and attractive residential neighborhood. That's its number one purpose. They set it up as residential. They made a special area for residences. It's something that where people want to live and have a nice, safe neighborhood, a nice environment to live in. It's where your home is. It's where you live. It's where your children play. It's called a residence. That's what this area's number one purpose is. And I do not see where we find some thing that kind of sounds like maybe you could put it up there, program. It doesn't really say, to me, I get really hung up on this, and Liz did try to explain this as far as the private use. Okay, this thing states that, let me find out, where was it? Private 1972.02, is it page 8? Oh, that was Liz's, man. That was Liz's 1972. Hold on. Sorry about this. I do have all these pages marked at one point, but I don't seem to be following my, Okay, so then, here's the other one. So the first one was the purpose of the single-family residential district is to provide a sound and attractive residential neighborhood. Okay, that should be your number one thought whenever you're going to do anything with this area. That should take precedent over anything else. It is its number one goal, is to make it a single-family residential district, is to provide a sound and attractive residential neighborhood. And if we start doing things like that want to be done here, there's going to be people who live next door to this. And let's say that you wanted to build a house there. Do you think somebody's going to want to build a $400,000 house across the street from a warehouse? Or are they going to, well, then now we better change it in somebody else that wants to build a $200,000 house or whatever house. The clientele, the people that are going to want to buy into the neighborhood, the people that are going to want to be there, some guy that has a bunch of money doesn't want this around him. It's just pretty much human nature. If he has his family, he wants to live up there, he really doesn't want what you guys are trying to give him up there. I mean, or what's been, at this point, given to him, I guess. Okay? So, and then I read this one, too. When it's conditional uses, it says, here's why you can do it. All right? There's conditions where you can let them do stuff. I read this, and Liz had a clarification in her notes about, and she'll probably go over it again, about private and what the lawyer said about private. Okay? Number one, I don't get why they even put private in there. We're trying to differentiate something here. I mean, I don't see that word having to be there if you could just put in docks and moorage and boathouses and mid houses. So private has some sort of meaning. And what what they're saying is that's not public. Okay. So, is it your private fishing gear? Or your private commercial fishing gear? Or is it your, what is the meaning of, how are we getting that this could be basically, to me, what it is? It's a commercial fishing gear warehouse. And I don't read that out of that sentence. I don't see that in there. I just can't, it just, I guess what he would have up there would be then a private commercial fishing industry. I guess that's what we're going to permit. Because now it's private, it's his. Private just means it's yours, evidently. It means it's yours. But that doesn't mean that the use that you're going to give it can be a commercial use. Just because it's yours and it's private, it's still becoming a commercial use. You're putting something that doesn't belong in a residential area sitting there by itself at a warehouse. I just don't believe that's the intent of this whole residential area. I don't read it. I don't see it. Of course, I have a lot in this because I have a beautiful place up there. I got a $100,000 view down the Narrows, and I can see Petersburg Mountain and over to Frederick Sound. I'm off my second story when I build it. Okay, so there's a lot of reason for me not to want to see this start happening, and I know that if it does, eventually it's going to affect my property values. The appraiser said, I called the other appraiser, he said, look, we can't do it because appraisals are kind of set. We can't say it's going to do it, okay, but 3 years from now when it does, then we can tell you it did. And that's how they're set up. Appraisals are based, they're based on sales. They're based on what happens around. They see something happen. Let's go over, like this historic thing. The historic thing is on Cornelius. And they say well, historically we've done this. How historically are we talking when we have 3 or 4 sheds in the whole town? I don't know how historic that is. And these 3 or 4 sheds are sitting on a home that doesn't even get sunshine on it.
Hey, Joe.
It doesn't even, there's no view. It's it's kind of an area that was kind of like, kind of the way it grew up. This area is just getting started.
Excuse me, Joe.
Fantastic views. It's got, it's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to live. It's got the best southern exposure, or as good a southern exposure as you're going to get on the island of Petersburg.
Hey, Joe.
Okay?
Excuse me. It's been 15 minutes. You get another chance to speak later. If you have anything different to add, if you keep talking of views and residential areas and what they're meant for, we've gone over. Do you have any other things you want to touch on? And then we can move on to the next
there was
person.
one thing, findings of fact on page 16. Let's go to page 16 real quick. Which was, they're basically saying on findings of fact, they're saying that this will not, especially the reason that on their findings of fact, it says the commission finds that based on the conditions placed on the use permit, which is the conditions that they put in place, limiting outside storage, size and siding of the net house, screening fence, use, and I don't know what a screening fence is and what all that stuff is, because all the lots are uphill, so you can see down into this thing anytime you want to. It's not. I don't think it's going to protect anything from anybody seeing what's there. Okay, the use is in keeping with the character of that area. And what they're including in that area is not the residential area. It is a residential area. They're saying, well, especially since the subject parcel backs up against lot zoned for industrial use. Okay, so somebody's got to break it off, right? I don't care if it backs up to it or doesn't back up to it. And this screening is provided, both the fence and green belt. I don't even know what green belt is. It's just a muskeg, 30-foot of muskeg, and a 6-foot fence that, you can see right through. So I don't see how their findings of fact make any finding at all. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Okay. It's to do with the appraiser's letter and I think it's a misrepresentation of fact. It's not, I don't think these things are factual, what he said, and I feel that, this property is it was zoned for a certain reason to be residential, and I'd sure like to see keep that way. So, all right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep, if you want to talk in the audience, please go outside.
I got you.
So, Joe, is that it?
Yeah, that's good for now. I'll wait and listen and then go.
You get to talk again. So, Liz Cabrera will speak next. She's the staff for the Planning Commission, and she will present her report and recommendations. Yes, that's coming next, down the road. I saw that.
Do I get to make a comment after?
After Katrina and Aaron, they're next on the list. We're going to follow the procedure that I spoke of. Thank you, Liz.
My name's Liz Cabrera, and I'm staff to the Planning Commission. And I just handed out basically the same report that.
I was just going to ask. So,
You hear me?
yes, I hear you, Joe. So we will rectify that problem one way or
Very good.
another.
Very good. Really.
You wanna-
Joe, can you adjust that somehow?
Can we move the podium next to the phone? Is
Okay,
that-
that's what I was wondering if we'd have to do. Hang on one second, Joe. We will make it so you can hear Liz.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Closer.
Slightly awkward, but okay.
I can scoot back a little bit.
Yeah, would you?
You're laughing.
We're just, it's kind of awkward having the podium right next to the dais here, so, all right, Liz?
Can you hear me now? Joe?
Better.
Great, okay. Liz Cabrera with the Planning Commission, and I just passed out the memo that I had submitted earlier, and just to save you from having to dig through your packets, it's just right in front of you. As you consider this decision, and as I thought about it when I put this memo together, it's not really about whether you necessarily agree or disagree with the Planning Commission. It's more looking at whether the Planning Commission followed the law, whether they followed their established procedures and interpreted things correctly.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you, Joe.
She went away. I don't
Maybe
know.
if we put the phone, can you hear me all right?
Oh, I hear you great.
All right, let's do this.
I don't know. We'll probably end up unplugging something here.
Hopefully not.
It's all wound up, so you
We're
plenty
good.
of
Yeah, like me.
You want another talking device?
Okay, you're right next to me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good. That's good, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So it's not necessarily about whether you agree with the Planning Commission's decision, it's about whether they followed their procedures. And the memo before you, the first part of it is proceedings before the Planning Commission and outlines the process used and a timeline from when the permit application was submitted through all of the public hearings and votes that occurred. On page 2, there's the relevant ordinances that the commission should be considering when they give out a permit. And then it continues on to the determinations based on findings of fact. And what I did was go through each of the reasons that you could potentially uphold and overturn the Planning Commission's decision and explain why I didn't think that was necessarily a good idea or why that criteria was not fulfilled. So number one is the appellant did not establish there was an error in the application of pertinent law. And the fact is that the municipal ordinance allows for a conditional use permit to be issued in single-family residential for the construction of a net house. So that's already in the ordinance. It's been done both when there's a house present, and it's also been done when there is not a house present. So it's within what the Planning Commission is allowed to do. Secondly, Mr. Aliberti asserts that we should not be allowing a net house for commercial fishing gear, and the ordinance does not itself limit fishing gear to commercial or any other kind of gear. So it doesn't limit it in any way. In the past, we've always given out conditional use permits for commercial fishing gear storage. Mr. Aliberti also claims that the Planning Commission misinterpreted the term private and that it should mean non-commercial. In discussions with the borough attorney, Sarah Heidemann, and also looking at the code, the term private is used throughout the code and is generally meant to be non-public. So a private net shed or a private moorage, as it's used in this case, is one that's not necessarily open to the public. So you wouldn't have, it's not non-commercial, it's that it's just for that person's use. So it's not open for everybody in town to use. The appellant also claims that the commission did not take into account the effect the situation would have on property values, and he also just referenced the letter from the assessor. The commission did hear public testimony pertaining to property value and did consider that information. We heard competing testimony that the issue was more about the lack of services in the area. The letter from the assessor was solicited by the appellant. I also spoke to him briefly. He had some knowledge of the issue of property values, and I suggested that it would be helpful for the commission to hear that. He prepared that letter. When the appellant saw it and talked to him further about it, realizing that he didn't quite understand the nuances of what the different zoning was in that area, I called the assessor, explained to him exactly what was happening in that area, that that whole row was residential, and asked him whether he wanted me to hold back the letter, and he said no, that he still stood by this letter. He wanted it distributed to the Planning Commission, and he thought that everything in the letter was still factual. I think the thing with the assessor is, as Joe said at the end, it's very difficult for them to quantify a change in property value without having any sales to compare. And so he's going to come back with that determination, unless he can actually talk to someone that says, yeah, I'm only going to offer X because of this situation. It's very hard for them to quantify. So, I'm not sure how valuable that information really is without having some kind of sales associated with it. The Planning Commission also, he also claims that the Planning Commission did not take into account the effects the action will have on aesthetics of the property and the surrounding property. The Planning Commission clearly did by the number of conditions that they placed, particularly on their limiting of outside storage. I have to say that's probably the first time that outside storage around a net house has been limited to that extent. They also put pretty strict guidelines in on when all of this needed to be accomplished. So I think they did make an effort to mitigate aesthetic values. Let's see, the other reason for possibly upholding an appeal is that the decision was not supported by adequate findings or failed to inform the basis upon which that decision was made. The appellant didn't make any of those claims in his written appeal. I think the findings point to the fact that they went out of their way to try and address any issues that they thought might be of concern, and specifically went through and put those conditions in place that they thought would be issues. Number 3, the appellant did not establish the Planning Commission failed to follow procedures. He's never mentioned any problem with the public hearing process or the public notice process. Appellant did not establish there was a misrepresentation of fact. He did make some claims about the assessor's letter, but I think those are clarified and it's the assessor's error. I think we all knew what we were looking at. I don't think anyone in the Planning Commission took the assessor's letter and misunderstood what he was trying to say in those. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer. Otherwise, that's pretty much our report.
Any questions of Liz from the Assembly?
Liz, specifically, what is the conditions on that permit that you've issued?
Sure.
It was in here, but is there some more detail than what's?
Sure, there's actually quite a list. On the net house itself, the net house can be no larger than 2,500 square feet. It needs to be completed with 18 months of issuance of the permit, so by August 12, 2016. Completion means that the structure has passed final inspection by the building official. The net house needs to be situated in the rear portion of the lot. Any shipping containers used in conjunction with construction of the net house need to be sided so that they're not visible. And the commission reduced the rear setback, which I probably would ask you to reverse that as we go further along, because they probably shouldn't have done that. But the idea was to try and push the net house back as far back in the lot to give it more of a buffer on the front end. There needs to be installation of obscuring fence on 3 sides of the lot by August 1st, 2015. The front yard fence shall be located 30 yards from the front property line. The side yard fences shall be located at least 10 yards from the side property lines. There's no fence required in the rear yard because that's where it abuts with industrial, and the fence height shall be 6 feet. Outside storage is limited to crab pots and 2 skiffs, period. There will be a 30-wide green belt consisting of natural vegetation, which in that area is muskeg, between the front property line and that fence line. So that's it. And they have 1 year to begin working on this, like such as getting a building permit, or the conditional use permit can be revoked.
Okay, Cindy had a
I have a question, Liz. Did you say you have 1 year to begin working on it?
Joe?
Yeah, they have to use it within 1 year.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Cindy, you had a question or comment?
I don't know if I had a well-formed one. I wasn't
Well, we're going to have a
ready
deliberation.
to ask a question. In thinking about it, though, I do have a question about setting precedents, and it may be an inadequacy of our ordinance. I don't see anything that addresses that or that would disallow property owner after property owner from doing the same thing. Our ordinance pretty much leaves that wide open, doesn't it?
Do you mean whether someone next door could also put up a net house?
Yeah.
It's a permit by permit, so then they would have to go through the same process where they'd go to the planning commission and go through the same thing, another public hearing, and go through the same exact process, yeah.
I understand that.
But there's
it
no
would be
limit
difficult,
on-
Yeah, to say
on-
no if you had said yes to the adjoining property.
Or maybe it's easy, we already have one. I
Right,
don't know,
right,
depends on the planning
right.
commission, yeah.
Kurt, are you done, Cindy? Kurt?
Just a clarification, Liz, you said 30 feet, or 30 yards, I mean, and I think you meant to say 30 feet.
Oh, 30 feet,
Yeah,
sorry,
okay,
thank you.
All right, that's all.
Any other questions? And Liz, you and I talked today about the time frame for this all has to take place. I mean, before they could build the warehouse, they have to put up the fence and meet the conditional use permits, correct?
Right.
Okay. Or requirements. All right, thank you. That's all
Sure.
I've got. Okay, next in the process, if Aaron or Katrina Miller, owners of the property granted the conditional use permit, would like to present any argument, can you please come forward? Sure, Aaron. Sorry we have to do it like this, but otherwise Joe can't hear. So.
It's fine. I'd like to thank you for your time here. I
Can you
don't
identify
think.
yourself, please?
Oh yeah, Aaron Miller. I'd like to reread the appraisal company of Alaska's letter to the city at the request of Joe Aliberti. I don't think he did the letter justice. He kind of misrepresented some stuff himself. I'm just going to go ahead and read it slowly because I think it's a good letter, and I think it pretty much ends his appeal, in my opinion. Besides Liz's testimony, I think she did a nice job, and I think she did her homework, and I think the appeal shouldn't be granted. At your request and that of Mr. Joseph Aliberti, I have reviewed the potential impact to residential property values the issuance of a conditional use permit would have in the Hungerford Hills area. The main point of concern is whether issuance of the subject property would adversely impact the value of residential land in the immediate area. Specifically, this permit would allow for the construction and operation of a net storage facility. It is my understanding that all operations associated would be of an interior nature, i.e. no outside storage materials would be utilized. I completed 2 site inspections of the area last week. When considering current development in the immediate area, which is a construction business in close proximity, which is true, it is my opinion, in fact that's my nearest neighbor, it is my opinion the issuance of the subject property or subject permit would not adversely affect property values. Let me read that again. It is my opinion the issuance of the subject permit would not adversely affect property values. In fact, the proposed use of the property appears to be of a lower impact, as the immediately abutting area currently has a significant amount of heavy equipment storage and other commercial industrial materials. It is my opinion this would have greater impact on surrounding properties than the contemplated usage. However, this land utilization predates residential development in the area. Yeah, it does. As a side note, an existing subdivision roadway acts as a natural buffer between residential and heavy commercial usage at this time. I'll read that again. As a side note, an existing subdivision roadway acts as a natural buffer between residential and heavy commercial usage at this time. That's the front of our lot. There's a road right there. As a former planning director and university research fellow in rural, urban, and regional planning, sounds like a professional to me, I do have experience in addressing matters of this nature. I find it very important that since this is for issuance of a conditional use permit, that specific conditions be well stated and agreed upon by both the issuing agency, Petersburg Borough, and the applicant, which we did. Further, it is equally important that the applicant abide by the established conditions and the borough strictly enforce the conditions. That violations may be quickly addressed and abjudicated. Conditions may include, yet not be limited to, site obscuring fencing or vegetation, specific mention of no exterior storage of equipment, etc., allowable size of any storage structure, etc. After your review, please contact me should you have any questions, and on, numbers and stuff. But I think that letter pretty much nails it. The picture says 1,000 words. I'd like to pass this out to council members. This is Joe's house. It's been like that since we moved up there, or since we've stored gear there. We're probably approaching 10 years now. Not a lot of progress has been done. It looks like a storage lot to me. I don't know what your opinion is, but I'll leave that with you. You can have it. My printer ran out of ink, so I don't have more pictures.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Miller?
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of the conditional use permit, the long list of 2,500 square feet, et cetera, everything that you already know, are those things reasonable, and can you accomplish them?
Yeah.
When you feel confident in that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Okay, Katrina, did you want to speak, or Aaron, you're representing both Katrina and yourself?
He's representing both of us.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so property owners directly notified by mail that are within the 600 feet of this property. We're talking about giving this conditional use permit to Pat Weaver. Do you want to speak next? Can you please state your name so people can, it'll be on the record, and
Okay.
we know who you are.
Thank you. My name is Pat Weaver, and I and my husband Mark are major property owners up in the area that is being discussed. And one of the things that is a main concern for us is the enforcement of what planning and zoning has, proposed with the conditional use permit. And it seems like a very workable arrangement with the permit. Planning and zoning has done a lot of work in this regard, and the conditions seem workable as far as we're concerned, with most of the storage being inside, limited storage outside, and everything that has been set forth. Our main concern is enforcement of that, though. As has been mentioned earlier, there is an abutting property that has all kinds of equipment stored on it, and that issue has been addressed many times by the city to the property owner. A lot of conversation back and forth, emails. He moves a little bit off and then it creeps back on, and the city just has not had any way to put any teeth into enforcing that. And although the conditional use permit for the net shed, everything is laid out well and sounds good, our concern is that the city would be able to enforce that. And also, Cindy, thank you for bringing up the issue of setting precedents with that net shed in the area. Planning and zoning has passed this net shed, and everything seems fine with that, but it is residential, and we feel that the property owners up there who are wanting to build homes, they have a right to enjoy their property without worrying about commercial creep happening all around them. And if this sets precedent where net shed after net shed after net shed are allowed to go in, that just doesn't seem right. I know everything has to be gone through on an individual basis, and those issues approved or not approved. But that's the way we see things at this time.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank
Any
you.
questions of Mrs. Weaver?
Thank you.
Pat. Donna, did you want to?
Well, there's not that much left to cover. Liz did a great job representing.
Can you come up here so the public can hear, please? State your
Hello,
name.
this is Donna Lobbin. Liz did a great presentation representing how we did stuff, and so did Weaver's reading the letter, because we felt that the letter was an excellent letter. So I'm not going to go back over a lot of the stuff that they had. The only thing that I wanted to, I didn't have the photo of it, is everybody keeps saying resident, but when you see the photo of the sign there, it says residential and commercial property for sale. So within the subdivision, there are some commercial lots there. And when we originally did have the hearing for this here, Weavers and the Millers all came to an agreement. In fact, that's when we were talking about rezoning the whole thing, because originally there was no buffer zone. But then, like, the road was added through there, and the assessor did say that was, we were trying to semi-fix a problem that used to be there. And that was one of the reasons we first went with it. The other thing is we made such fences. You know, it's like, I'm Jewish, you make laws, and you make a fence, and you make a fence so you don't break it, okay? And we really made some hurdles for these people, and made it really easy for Joe to say, you're out of, you're out of there. And so we're hoping that they keep their agreement. I just don't want to go back over. I had notes here, but everybody went over it. The other thing is something that really kind of got us to it is when Miller's bought it, they made the statement that right when they bought it that they were going to use it for storage. And so that kind of concerned us when it was sold to them, that it was an understanding. And at the hearing, we specifically asked all parties if that was understood. And so that's kind of one of the other reasons we leaned that way, because there was a lot of things going into the works. But that's everything else was covered by Liz. And I just hope it's enforced and they do it. But the thing on the precedence type thing, this is a fishing community, and we do have storage, and if they had a home on it and lived on it, there wouldn't be this issue. Okay, they could store the stuff there. So it's what concerned a lot of us is, what if they put a rental on there? Okay, there's a resident on, and there is no control, and then all of a sudden you have the storage all out. So the way we looked at it is by having this building containing it on it, in fact, kept it a lot neater than having a resident having it everywhere. So, and the other thing was mentioned was, he mentioned about $400,000 homes up there. And that was the other thing we considered, was we spent a lot of foot work up there, a lot of us, talking to the neighbors, and we even met people that were looking at property. And some of the people, I met 2 people looking to buy up there, and their big issue when I asked them was there was no water and power up there. And when you asked about the lots that were in the center there, they sat there and said, well, these other places look worse than Humford Hill did to them. And some of them, and so that was another thing that we considered, because I wasn't the only one that talked to people walking up that way. So we did take a lot into consideration in this here. What else can I add? But if it was like Sandy Beach Road, we wouldn't, say, let's put a net shed. But up there, we could not see, it was mentioned at one of the meetings of a $400,000 home tonight, but $1 million home, and we couldn't see people building $1 million home there. So we went with what was there and what type of neighborhood. Any questions?
Kurt, you had a question?
I do have one for you, Dawn. You said that's the reason why you went that way. That was the covenant that you made with them? In other words, having to put up the fence, the green strip, the setbacks and that all stuff. That's what you meant by that?
Well, originally they had a special use permit and they were going to renew it, okay? And then it was presented, I don't remember who exactly presented it, that it would have been easier for it to be rezoned. And in fact, Weavers were there at that particular one, and we even went through this hashing with everybody about rezoning the whole block there and making a really good buffer to safeguard and even safeguard because the people who were owned those particular lots also owned in Humford Hill. So it was even going to make it, the aesthetics better all around is what we were looking at for, but that was turned over by you guys. And so we went back to the special use permit, and a lot of people kept saying, well, they let it run out. It wasn't, I don't feel their fault that it ran out because we went as a group, you know, to somewhere else. And so I don't think they should be held against for letting that lapse because it was because there was another avenue being worked on. Because I know a lot of people have mentioned that, and that's why we ended up going back to the original plan. But this time we made it very hard on the Millers and gave them time limits, and we're just hoping that they do it. We're wanting it to make it nice looking. And when you talk about having a precedence, the way that we thought about it was having these net sheds the way our vision is as a group was a lot nicer than a residential with a whole bunch of garbage around it, okay, because it was going to look nicer.
Isn't that true, though, that in the ordinance here that even a residents on Sandy Beach Road could have a net house on their property because it's in the ordinance if they've got a special use permit? Or, I mean, so it's not like we're setting any precedent here. It's already a fact that it occurs and will continue to occur. So I'm not going to step up to the phone.
That was Assembly Member Walhooter, Joe. He just stated that as far as setting a precedent and letting this net shed be built there, that you can build net sheds anywhere in town on residential property currently with the way the code is set up. So that's all this discussion was.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions of Donna? Moving our juggling phone around. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, is there any other property?
I got a question. Actually, for the council, is that out of protocol?
Well, we're not supposed to go back and forth, but one last thing.
I just want to restate.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Hang on, Joe, you're coming right up.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I can't hear though.
You will.
I just wanted to reestablish the fact that the burden of proof is on Joe for making a case here.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, your testimony is complete now then.
Thank you.
Joe, it's time for your final argument.
Yeah, there's so many things here, I don't know where to start.
Can you keep it to 10 minutes? I mean, that's being...
Hey, I'll try.
We're into this an hour.
I get long-winded sometimes, but that's the Italian in me, I guess. We have, I don't know where we get all this, number one, okay, something Pat mentioned, enforcement. I would like somebody there to tell me if they don't meet one of those conditions. Maybe Liz would be the one to tell us. What is she going to do when they don't meet the first condition of the conditional use permit? You guys don't have anything in your ordinances. You can't move the people next door off of their property. How are you going to move these guys off their property if they don't follow what you say? Why don't you put the conditions that they're supposed to follow into this conditional use permit? It is a conditional use permit. So if in 6 months you don't do this, you pay $1,000 a day, or you pay $800 a week, or you pay $2 a minute. I don't care what it is, something happens. Then if you don't, you have another period of time and you don't get your stuff, don't take care of what you're supposed to take care of, then we can go move your stuff off the lot. And then, if you don't do that, and we got to go to court, you got to pay for court costs. You got to put some bite in this thing. There's nothing you guys can do. You're going to put 2 lots up there with the same problem, which nobody's going to move their stuff off of. Because all it is good faith that they're going to do this. There's nothing in your ordinances that lets you go and do anything to them if they don't follow this. So it makes only sense to me to protect me as a property owner that lives up there, that you guys put some bite into the conditional use permit that you're going to give them, even though I don't think you should give it to them. trying to establish up there? I mean, you have to establish somewhere. There is a natural division at the back of Hungerford Hill. The only thing that opens up to that land there, the residential land, is you have Richard's lot. That opens up it's the side of his shop and the front of his lot, okay? That opens up to this property. From there on, there's a natural buffer zone there. There's already trees. There's a little aluminum thing with a tarp on top of it on the next lot that you don't even see from over there. Then there's the back of a house. Then there's the back of a warehouse. Then there's the back of another warehouse. So, I mean, you've got a line there, and it got separated, and you have residential, and you have industrial, and you have, I mean, we have all these zones that we set up. I don't quite know why we seem to want to put this stuff, into a residential area, especially when we have other lots, actually even the same subdivision, that are available and actually could have been bought at the time this lot was bought. This lot, it could have been very simple. And also, there is another thing that was offered, and that was by Pat Weaver to the Millers, that she would trade them straight across so they could have an industrial lot, move all their stuff over there, have it outside, do whatever they want. It would be a great trade, and it would be, I think it would be a way better thing for the neighborhood. But, I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me on that. It doesn't seem like that, I'm getting a whole lot of agreements. But, and let's stay with the assessor. I just want to go there one more time. Because I don't know how, when I read this guy has the lot that abuts their lot, which is Richard's storage lot, which is another residential lot. He's basing his whole property value deal on the fact that lot's there, and it's full of all this commercial gear, so this one over here has less of an impact because it doesn't have as much stuff as this lot has on it, so there's going to be no, this is not an adverse effect because that thing's already adversely affecting everything so much, but his problem is that is a residential lot. And it's the lot that the city has failed for years to move somebody off of. So, I don't know what you guys want to do in years, and I don't know how many, these net sheds, it sounds like you have a whole bunch of them. I don't remember talking to Liz and people, there might be 3 or 4, or a lot of them have a house. And yet, one more thing, if you build a house on Cornelius right now, let's say you built a $300,000 house, somewhere in that range, okay? I'm going to guarantee you if you built it there on Cornelius or you built it up in Severson subdivision, you tell me which house would have more value. That the road that has 3 or 4 net sheds on it and then a nice house, or the subdivision that doesn't have any of this stuff. So, I don't know. That's all I can say. I mean, you guys are going to make up your mind. I don't get it. This letter, if you guys really read this letter from the appraiser, this guy, he's totally wet. He's totally wet. He doesn't get it. There's no way that he's comparing. Well, you guys, I've said it 3 times now. So if somebody doesn't understand what I'm saying, I guess I'm not getting my point across. So anyway, I appreciate all your guys' time. Could you tell me too, Mark? Now, from this process, are you? I guess you'll let me know where we're going from here, or if I need to be in the meeting, or you guys make a decision now, or it's going to be, maybe you could let me know that. I appreciate it. And thanks for your time again.
I think what's going to happen, Joe, is we're going to deliberate the issue, and we have a set time to come up with a decision. I think it's 10 days or something like that, but we might take action this evening. So,
I don't know. Yeah.
So that's what happens next, is assembly deliberation and then a formal action to grant or deny the appeal, and I suppose we could table it to another time if we don't feel comfortable. And so this is the end of the public testimony on this hearing. So, and you kept it within 10 minutes. So, anyway, you can stay on the phone if you'd like and listen, but there will be no more comments on this issue. So, with that being said, was I right on the time frame, Debbie? I think it's.
I believe that there's just not going to be anything about this tonight. We're done.
No, the assembly is going to go into deliberation on this issue after hearing the public testimony that was just given, and we may very likely make a decision tonight whether your appeal will be accepted or denied.
And that is going to be an executive session, or is that going to be here? Are we going to all be?
That's going to be an open session, but there will be no more public comment.
Oh, so we could listen, but just, yeah.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
We're getting one point of clarification here, though, so.
Yes, within 10 consecutive calendar days after the hearing, the Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment shall render a decision.
Did you hear that, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you want me to move this back to you?
Sure. We'll have more public comments. We'll probably need the podium back over there, I suppose. So at this point, I guess I would entertain a motion to approve, since you have to make a motion in the positive, Joe Aliberti's appeal of the Planning Commission. Before we could deliberate. So I don't hear a motion?
So, yeah, I'll make a motion for the sake of discussion. I move to approve his appeal. Is that right?
It has to, motions have to be made in the positive, so if you wanted to deny it, then it wouldn't be a positive
Gotcha.
state.
But for the sake of discussion, I move. So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it. So we can
Okay, it's been moved by Member Gregor and seconded by Member Lagodakas to grant Joe Aliberti's appeal of the Planning Commission. So if it gets down to where we take a vote, you'd have to vote no to deny his appeal. Does that make sense?
Then I withdraw my second.
So without a second to the motion, there's no debate. That means we don't move forward with formal action, but if we're required to do this within 10 days.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion's been made by Member Gregor, seconded by Member Havlicek to approve the appeal of the Planning Commission by Joe Aliberti. So, am I making sense to the clerks over there? Okay, good. I hope so. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I had more of a clarification rather than discussion, than add to the discussion. Our basic role in this is not so much to approve or disapprove the net shed, but it's to say if the Planning Commission in its course of action was inappropriate at any of their steps. So if we turn down Mr. Alberti's appeal, we would be basing it on that the Planning Commission did something inappropriate in its process. Is that correct?
I think we would be voting that what they did was appropriate. If we deny his appeal, that means...
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I thought that's what you were...
Yeah, no,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
I was born dyslexic.
So any more discussion on this? Does anybody feel we need more time to discuss it? I mean, like another meeting, or what do you think?
My 2 cents, for whatever it's worth, is the planning, P&Z put a lot of time into this, and if we're going to be overturning, I guess, the will of the planning and zoning, I think we'd need fairly compelling reasons to do so, and I definitely, in this case, do not see any compelling reason to overturn the decision of planning and zoning, so I'll definitely be voting no on this.
Okay, and any other discussion by any other members? Cindy, you want to?
I've talked to Joe at length. I voted against the conditional use permit the first time, however, and thank you, Liz, for the clarifications. I asked her several questions today and also did some research on conditional use permits, but our own ordinance says the use will be permitted if it's in harmony with the general purpose and intent. And I think the fact that it's an allowed conditional use, that other people could do that if they built a home. I understand Mr. Aliberti's concerns, but I would have to agree. I believe the Planning Commission followed process. So I would have to vote to deny the appeal.
Any other comments by Assembly members? Nancy?
I don't see where the Planning and Zoning Commission has broken any rules. I think they did the right thing, and I will have to vote to deny too.
Okay, anybody else on the Assembly have comments on how they're going to vote, which direction, or any other comments? I agree with one comment that Mr. Aliberti has brought up, and maybe this past, our nuisance ordinance that we're going to be discussing here a little bit later can address some of this. There has been rules on the books, and people have been told to clean up your yard, basically, or move your stuff, and they don't. So, and the question was asked, Liz, so what's going to happen if they don't follow the conditional use permit? I mean, once they get the shed built, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, I would imagine, to do anything about it. Is that microphone working there, possibly?
Yes, I think so.
Can you hear this, Joe?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I'd like to hear the answer to that question. You bet.
Okay, well, maybe you will be able to hear Liz over the microphone. I hope so.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Mr. Mayor, the
I doubt if you can hear that.
1972-090 states that any violation of any condition shall result in revocation of the permit, and further use of the property or maintenance of any building thereon shall constitute a violation of this title and shall be punishable accordingly. So in the ordinance, we do have a mechanism for if they violate any aspect of the conditional use permit. For instance, if they don't build the fence by the time they're supposed to, we can pull the permit and they would not be able to construct the net house.
Repeat it for me if you would, if she's done. I can't hear. So.
I will, Joe. I'll try to repeat what you're saying.
Thanks.
Having said that, I do feel like I need to make a plug for the nuisance ordinance that you're going to look at later on this evening, because that would really help us streamline our enforcement of these types of violations. So.
Okay, so if you would stay and help us, guide us through that to maybe get some teeth into these ordinances, it might make a difference. I believe, and I don't remember the ordinance number, the section of the code that Liz was referring to, Joe. Hang on a second here.
I didn't hear what she said, but I've never, you guys, just for my own personal thing here, you've had 4 years. If they violate their conditional use permit, they're in the same boat as it's the lot next door.
That's water under the bridge right now. You've had time to do your public testimony. We're going to move forward. I hate to cut you off, but what she brought up was section 19.72.090. Is that correct, Liz? Issuance of permit and conditions. In granting a conditional use permit, the commission shall state the conditions required, which they have done. Any such condition must be complied with, which we're yet to see. Violation of any condition shall result in revocation of the permit and further use of the property or maintenance of any building thereon shall constitute a violation of this title and shall be punishable accordingly. And we are addressing the nuisance ordinance later on this evening, so hopefully we will have more ability to penalize people if they don't follow the conditional uses. So that's what Liz was saying.
Yeah, I think you said, would you say accordingly? Is that what it is? Is that, so the only word we have in there that you guys can really do anything is accordingly, is that correct? Whatever accordingly is that right?
There is time frame set up too, as far as, does that, when you come out, read out of that accordingly?
Punishable accordingly.
Accordingly,
Yeah,
so I guess.
stick into that.
What is accordingly, and what are the fines or the, what are those things going to be? Is there anything you can actually do? I don't hear anything that you can do. I really don't.
Okay, well, I was just reiterating what Liz said, and we're going to go on with our deliberation here and possibly take action on this, Joe. Okay, any other comment or discussion? And so we'll have the clerk call the roll one more time. If you vote in favor of this, Mr. Aliberti gets his appeal. If you vote no, the appeal is denied. So would the clerk please call the roll?
Nancy?
No.
Bob?
No.
John?
No.
Kurt?
No.
Jay?
No.
Mark?
No.
Cindy?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, I don't know if you heard the votes, but your appeal has been denied with a unanimous vote of the assembly. So
I got that. I heard it.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Yep.
You know,
Yep, thank you.
what it does up there eventually, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, we're moving on the agenda
So if
here.
everything works out fine and you guys get some teeth in your ordinances, it'd be nice. So
I agree.
clean the neighborhood up a little bit, it should be nice. All right, thank you.
Yep, you
Yeah,
bet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, you bet. Bye.
Okay, does anybody need to take a little break? Because I'm sure this next issue is going to be just about as long as this last one.
Take that one as well.
You good? Anybody need to use the bathroom before we start?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, we'll take 5 minutes. We'll call the meeting back to order. We have a full assembly again here. And the next item is a public hearing on ordinance 2015-04, an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2015 budget for known changes. And this includes a change in the recycling program. And I think everybody in the room probably knows what the changes are that are proposed. And Carl, are you still on the phone?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks for taking your vacation time to be here with us. So I'd like a show of hands in the audience of who wants to testify to see if we need to limit time. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9. So if we limit it to 3 minutes, we're going to have a half an hour of just discussion. So that's what I would like to try to do, limit it to 3 minutes. Generally, I'm pretty liberal about letting people go longer, but we need to move forward. So I don't know everybody's name, so just come forward. Sure, you can be first. Marita, you want to come first? All right. Let's just go like this. How about you guys know who you are? Let's work through the...
I'm Marita Davis, and I was asked to read a letter from Vicki Curtis. This is her opinions. I don't know if they will match up with mine, and I'll take a moment to give mine at the end. To whom it may concern, I am writing to state my interest in keeping the recycle collection system in the private sector as much as possible for at least a few more years. It is still in its infancy stage and will continue to expand, and I believe if we turn it into a borough responsibility, it will just add additional borough jobs and costs way above anything we are currently paying. I think a lot of people are all for recycling when it is free to the public. Nobody is going to be happy about having to pay for it. Also, adding any additional jobs or responsibilities to the borough government is never cost effective for the public, no matter what the original plans look like. Consumers all over the country and in Petersburg are struggling financially to meet monthly household expenses. Costs are rising far more rapidly than incomes. It is time for the borough to recognize that and to stop or curtail any expenditures that are not absolutely necessary. Many local people believe buying new equipment and expecting to add job responsibilities to existing positions will only add additional expenses and costs. Please seriously consider the above in any decision you make regarding the recycle program. People are financially struggling. Please do what you can to avoid adding any additional burdens during this difficult time. Sincerely, Vicki Curtis. And I wrote a letter to the editor, and I emailed it to all of the assembly. And so you know my opinion. And basically, if we go in-house, then I will not be participating in the recycle program. It'll just be too inconvenient for me. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Marita. So let's just start with Wes. Were you going to testify? Or Mr. Davis? Okay. So we'll just work through the room that way. So maybe if you guys could help monitor who's next, and we just keep it in a flow here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members. My name is Angela Davis, and I am the other half of Ruger's Trucking, the current recycling contractor. I want to talk to you about a proposal regarding the current recycling program. Tonight, you will be making the final decision on the supplemental sanitation budget and the future of recycling here in Petersburg. There has been a lot of discussions about how much money the sanitation department can save if they were to purchase a new garbage truck and blue recycle cans. However, there has never been any discussions about how much the program is currently saving the department. We are currently at a 16% diversion rate, which means the borough is saving $96.90 per ton that is shipped out as recyclables instead of solid waste. As stated in Mr. Hagerman's December 16, 2014 recycling update, the sanitation department is on track to spend $4,543 on recycling shipments. Including the purchases of blue bags, the sanitation department will be under budget $77,000 this year. My question now is, why would there be any kind of garbage rate increase to 9% if the blue bags were continued when there has been such a huge savings? The cost of blue bags has cost more than anticipated, but overall we are still under budget. Wes and I have been talking to a lot of community members about the current recycling program and what their views are on possible changes. One of the most common responses was to have households purchase their own bags. Whether the borough requires them to purchase blue bags on their own or use their own current garbage bags has been equally weighted. The borough is currently spending 40 to 45 cents per bag and is requiring each home to put their bag out on collection day, no matter how full or empty the bag is. In my opinion, the bags are not only overpriced, but they are being wasted when each household is required to put the recycle bag out before the bag is even full to avoid a penalty charge. So I went on to Amazon.com and did a search on recycling blue bags. There are many different gallon sizes, but as an example, I can purchase a case of 30-gallon blue bags, which has 200 bags in the case for $47.10 with free prime shipping. That works out to 24 cents per bag, which is almost half of what the borough is currently paying. If I put out one bag per week, this case of bags would last my family 3.8 years. I have a family of 4, and I go through 2 to 3 bags per week recycling right now. So I'm looking at the case maybe lasting me 2 years. This could be a huge savings for the sanitation department if they chose to go that route. These same bags could also be sold to local drug and grocery stores for people who choose not to purchase off the internet, which would allow the borough to gain sales tax off these purchases. If the sanitation department wanted to keep supplying the blue bags, I would think that they should be able to get a much better deal buying a large quantity in bulk than I could as an everyday consumer. So why are they paying so much for bags is my question. There has also been a lot of comments by local residents who do not want a can, do not have room for a can, or simply do not want the inconvenience of a second can to put out on a different day. I will guarantee you that the recycling participation rate will drop dramatically if we go with the cans. The community likes the convenience of the bags, and they do not support changing a program they have just got used to doing. The numbers of the current households has already decreased over the last few months. I believe changing the current system is not going to be beneficial to the program. I spoke with a couple business owners today who were concerned about their commercial cardboard pickup and how it was going to be handled. I was specifically told today by one business owner that there was no plan for cardboard pickup per Mr. Hagerman in his conversation. They were told they were going to have to bring their cardboard up to the baler during the hours of noon to 3 p.m. Unfortunately, due to the nature of this gentleman's business, leaving his job to come up to the baler is not possible. The sanitation department sells this cardboard. So why has there been no plan for pickup for these businesses who support and serve this community? In addition to other sacrifices the sanitation department is going to have to make by cutting the baler hours and overworking the current sanitation staff, the potential of adding another employee is possible. In a September 2013 report produced by Mr. Hagerman, he stated in option B titled Cart System Pickup by Borough with Additional Truck and Employee Expenses were as follows: $65,000 of cart purchases, a used Packer truck at $30,000, annual truck O&M at $10,000 a year, truck replacement at $5,000 a year, employee wage and benefits of $75,000 a year, and a collection cart reduction unknown for the contract, but as of today we do know it is $85,200. In that his estimated first year costs were less than $238,000. If Mr. Hagerman stated in that same report that if the sanitation department was to take over the recycling program, there would be a high cost of purchasing new equipment, carts, and an additional new hire to complete this work. Today, the purchase of a used Packer truck is off the table, and a brand new truck with a price tag of $210,000 is being proposed. I know the only reason Mr. Hagerman feels the sanitation department can do this job without adding a new hire is because Ruger's Trucking has proven to be very efficient. We are using 2 people to complete the job, and we have the right equipment. A self-employed person has more incentive to work harder and work more efficiently than an hourly union employee. I want to propose the following for your consideration. The Assembly does not pass a supplemental sanitation budget. We have households either use their own garbage bags or purchase their own recycling bags, which is a $25,000 immediate savings to the sanitation department. And Ruger's Trucking will cap their current contract at $7,100 per month, which is $85,200 annually. So the current adjustments, which are in our contract and were required to be included with the original bid proposal for increase or decrease in participation, will not be a factor and not fluctuate the sanitation budget for our contract. Let's build this program over the next couple of years through education and incentives for a smaller refuse can. The original goal was to be at 30% diversion rate, which would be a savings of $80,000 annually. Let's take these next couple of years, get through the wave of inconsistent recyclers, and build a successful program that will truly benefit the community of Petersburg. I believe this program deserves at least a 2-year moratorium to avoid these annual discussions and to let this program grow and succeed. Thank you for your time.
Okay, the next person that wanted to testify. And please state your name and who you represent.
My name is Roger Sabine, myself.
Okay.
First, I owe everyone an apology. I'm the author of the unknown letter that Angela forwarded to you at your last meeting. Once Angela discovered that it was me that wrote it, she asked me to come. I have had experience with the Blue Bag program. I was involved with it 18 years ago when we started it where I used to live. After Angela talked to me, I called one of the managers from Allied Waste who sat on the board with me when we implemented this program in our county. And he informed me that it was 9 years before Allied Waste switched to containers. They kept a Blue Bag curbside pickup for 9 years. Once they switched to containers, they had more problems than they could imagine. They installed a state-of-the-art recycling conveyor with 25 people working, picking out, throwing in bins. The minute they switched to containers, people started throwing their everyday garbage in the blue containers. He said it became a real problem. The other problem, and the thing I stated in my letter, is no matter how good the truck driver is, if there's a wind blowing, and I live out at 9 Mile, and there is a wind, you're going to have trash, litter scattered all over the place. Because when that dumpster empties, if there's any loose trash in there, the wind's going to pick it up. Allied Waste has had a problem with that for years and years. They spend all kinds of extra money trying to fight it. The other thing is, I asked him about replacement of bins. Your blue bin purchase will not be a one-time purchase. He says, on an average, they replace blue bins in a community this size anywhere from 3 to 5% a year. So that cost is going to be added on every year. Like I said, 9 years is a long time for a county the size that I lived in to stay on curbside. I think it would be irresponsible to switch right now to anything other than staying the way you are. You need to understand what you're doing, and this has only been a year. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Next person to testify. Please come forward, state your name and who you represent.
Mayor and Assembly, my name is John Murgis. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is very impromptu. I didn't plan to come here until I was eating my Cheerios this morning. And glancing through some of the statistics that were presented by the folks who are doing a comprehensive plan, and they have published an update of where they're at and with some interesting numbers. And the employment profile, which is part of the economic profile, is in year 2012, we have 1,705 total employment. Of that, 529 are government, which is local, state, and federal. Self-employed is 228. And I thought that was a misprint, but it's not. And so that's 31% is government employees in Petersburg. The way I kind of look at this is each of us who are independent, self-employed, have to support 2.32 government employees besides our families. And I'm joking, of course. I'm not. And the other part of this is that 10 years ago, the number was 329 self-employed in Petersburg. Now it's down to 228, or at least in 2012 it is. So I think I was very startled with this. I think it's a dangerous trend, and I think we should do everything we possibly can to promote private enterprise. The statistics seem pretty good between, actually very close between what's proposed by the borough and by the contractor. The contractor entered into this contract in good faith. I think they have performed well, and I think they deserve another year to continue with that. I think Carl Hageman is also on track for researching and trying to find more efficiencies, better efficiencies, especially through new technology. And, I think there could be a good collaboration in the next year between the borough and the contractor to try to improve the efficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Next.
I'm Bob Martin. I'm a homeowner, and I just thought I'd share my observations. I've watched these guys come by and pick up the recycling. Don't have much going on in the winter, so I see them almost every time. And I just see them working hard, very efficiently, very low capital investment, and it's a competitive bid, and I just, intuitively, that seems like something we can try to make work, maybe give them another 2 years, and it's hard for me to believe that's not going to work out with maybe an attempt to get the cost of the bags down or something like that, and I'd like to see it continue on one more round. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next, as we go across the room.
Willie Hurf, Scout Bay. Speaking for myself, I've been taking the garbage cans up to the road Thursdays. This is my time, 8 a.m. because today about 10 minutes after. Okay, very good. And same with the blue bag. These people, they pick it up. I never had any problems with bags were open. We tie them up nicely. And that's been working just great. And in my opinion, if anything that works good and is efficient, any government comes in, they want more money. Then you give them a little more, then they want some more. That's just been here in Petersburg. Just charge the old timers some more. From Harvard to you name it. What's been going on? Just grab the pocket full of money out of some other people that working and retired. So anyway, I want to compliment what they've been doing. They're doing a great job. And so does the garbage department with their trucks. And the people are all very friendly. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mom.
Mr. Hurf.
I came up here because she wanted to speak. No, she's Mom is.
Linda, do you want to speak next?
I go with you.
Okay, my name is Linda Hurf, and I'm representing myself. I'm really careful when I'm putting things in the blue bag to put the cardboard kind of on one side and the paper there, and I try not to get anything wet. And I think if we have blue cans, I can just see the lids falling open, things getting wet. How are you going to get this dry now? Do you have to stick your head in and crawl into it to wipe it? You know, because there's going to be rain, as we know, and things get wet, and then once paper and cardboard and other things get wet, it's not recyclable anymore. The other thing is, did I hear Angie say that currently the blue bag system is saving the city $77,000 a year?
With the recycling.
With the recycling? And also I read in the paper this week that Stephen Giesbrecht said that the city is going to have a shortfall of $1 million this year?
Potentially could be.
Potentially. But there's going to be probably a shortfall. It's just something to consider before you spend another $300,000 when you're going to have a shortfall and you're already saving money. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Next. We're back to the left-hand side of the room, then a Harvey. How about that? No, after.
I'll be short. Sarah Holmgren, homeowner here in Petersburg. Just a couple comments because I think there's already been several that have been very valid, but one is was racking my brain over the last few weeks trying to think of in a situation where a public entity has taken over a private business and been successful or more successful. Usually it works the other way around, is the public works on it and they kind of throw their hands up at some point and say, let's hire a private contractor. We can't afford this, or it's not as efficient as we can make it, and let them do it. And I think that's what I worry about is right now, if we shift back to having the Borough of Petersburg do it, that right now maybe it would work, but I can see in the future that at some point a new employee is going to have to be hired. You've got benefits, workers' comp claims potentially on their injuries of dealing with this. Just watching it all fall, similar situation down in Washington State. It's all done by private enterprise for that very reason. And I personally would be willing to pay $47 a year or every 2 to 3 years to have blue bags if that's what it takes, instead of having to deal with another can. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Harvey?
2 bits.
Sure.
I'm Harvey Gilliland, and first of all, I want to say that I hope I'm not offensive to my friend Carl Hageman, who spent a lot of time at this, trying to do a good job about it, especially if my views turn out to be kind of contrary. And I sure don't want to get on the wrong side of my friend Joe Alberti. And I have to confess that I haven't done a real financial analysis of the whole plan, but it seems to me like it might be hard to realistically amortize the investment that's planned, especially with a special vehicle and its subsequent maintenance that might be unique and so on. And I understand there's an excessive cost to the bags. I learned today that there's people who use bags for purposes other than the recycling, and to a fair extent, and I think that's something like petty theft. I understand that we pay less for our garbage pickup because we recycle. If we didn't recycle, presumably our bill would be somewhat higher, $23 or something like that, as I recall. So I guess the borough knows who is recycling and who isn't. Seems to me like there ought to be a way to determine if the people that are recycling are the ones that are getting the bags, and how many are they getting, kind of track that a little bit to eliminate the theft and have the bags just go to people that are really using them. The next point I'd like to make is that maybe my situation is kind of unique. I have a house that I'm supposed to be working on, but I'm not living there. And when we moved from there, we decided to keep the garbage service at that location because I do have trash from my construction work and what have you. And so we don't have trash pickup where we live. So the day before pickup day, which is Tuesday for us, we take our blue bag and we take our garbage to our can and our driveway at this house I'm supposed to be working on. And there's a small driveway. We put the garbage can in a way so that the handle is easy to grab for somebody to pull out and dump. Sometimes we find and we have it off to the one side in our small driveway. Sometimes we come to there the next day or later on and that day and we find the garbage can in the middle of the driveway. We might find it out in the street. We might find it on the sidewalk on the other side of the street. And I understand there's a plan to give us another 96-gallon container, and that's pretty close to 2 55-gallon barrels. So we'd have 2 things to worry about and deal with, being in our driveway, maybe in the middle of the driveway, maybe across the road. And not to reflect on any one particular person that's doing the pickup, but that's just the way it's been. And I really dislike the idea of having the recycling pickup being on a different day than the trash, because then we have more complexity and when we put things out on account of that. And I guess I just have to echo something that has been said before, that I really like private enterprise. And I think the contractor's been doing a great job. It's obvious that they go at it with gusto and try to do it right. And I can't help but think that maybe the borough could be better off if there was more aspects of the town that are let out to private enterprise. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Harvey. Wes? Please state your name and who you represent.
Yeah, I'm Wes Abbott. I represent just myself and my family. And I've been a resident in Petersburg since 1968. And I started recycling when they had the dumpster up by Hammer and Recons or over by the cold storage, and using my own bags, not worried about it. When PIA started picking it up, I was still using my own bags, and then somebody came up with the idea of providing blue bags, and so I've been using them, and I don't put it out every week because it isn't full. And if it isn't full, why put it out, you know? And and I think Ruger and PIA did a good job, and I think they're doing a good job. And I don't see any reason to changing it. And I think it's kind of irresponsible to pay almost $300,000 for a new truck and garbage cans. And I don't need another garbage can to haul out to the road every week. And so, as far as I'm concerned, if it goes to the new garbage cans and stuff, I'll quit doing it. You know, I mean, if it's, I don't have room for it, and and at my age, I'm not going to be packing rolling 2 cans out to the street in the middle. And if we got snow and stuff, and it'd just be. And everything is working so well as it is, and Ruger is doing such a good job, and I can't see changing anything. And I'll provide my own bags if that's what it takes. I mean, if that's that big a deal, you know, I did it with my own bags for years, and so I'm not worried about using blue bags.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
Is there more hands that were up earlier?
Hi, my name's Jake Wilkinson. I was one of the 300 people or so that signed the petition in support of the blue bag. So I just had a couple points I was going to mention. I know, looking at the paper, I see that locally, even statewide, we're going to be operating at a deficit. So I don't see we're adding the truck for $300,000, and then $75,000 for the cost of barrels is really in our best interest at this time. I also was questioning, how about the impact up at the baler? I know in order for the sanitation department to take over this, we'll have to reduce baler hours, is what I read in the paper. So I was wondering, how is that going to affect the local community? And then just once again, you know, I hate to see the public sector take over something that's working and is in the hands of the private sector. So,
thank you for your testimony. Anybody else that would like to speak under the public hearing? This is on ordinance 2015-04.
My name is Charles Davis. I'm speaking on behalf of a private business owner here in town. I think that's the thing that frustrates me the most, is trying to take this away from private enterprise. That's what this city is based on, whether you're a fisherman, whether you drive a garbage truck, you're your own truck, or you own a toy store. It doesn't matter. That's what the city's based on. If it wasn't for the small businesses and business owners, every fisherman in this community, there wouldn't be much for employees, and those government jobs wouldn't be here either. And I got to tell you, I'm a little bit alarmed from hearing John Murgis's statistics on how many business owners there are compared to what they used to be. And so I think it's about time the borough starts taking care of their employees, and that is the business owners of this community, because we're the ones out there every day working to keep the city turning. We don't get a paycheck, we don't get a pension, we get whatever we get, and we're usually working 6 days a week for it. I think they ought to keep it that way. I find it kind of alarming that Petersburg has the highest garbage rates in all of Southeast Alaska, and at that we got to be threatened with 9% if we don't get rid of the bag program. I just find that wrong. I think if we got the highest garbage rates and we got to up our garbage by 9%, just because we're going to stick with the blue bag program, then I think we need to start taking a look at how things are being ran, because it's obvious that government enterprise can't do it. as well as the private sector, I believe. And if it's all about saving money, I think you ought to consider just having them run the baler while they're at it too. So, anyways, that's all I got to say about it. Besides the fact that I don't plan on putting my can out 2 times a week, and I don't mind providing my own bags either. But thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Davis. Anybody else want to testify in this public hearing? It's ordinance 2015-04. We're talking about the recycle. Minute and a half, Paul. No, we'll give you 3 minutes.
You know, it's the first time since '08 I've been in here.
I'm sorry I ran you off.
I'm sorry, we were a city back then. I remember you guys have got better. So I'm Paul Anderson, ex-vice mayor, city council, and all that. I got 24 years of paperwork at home, and it's all in boxes and all that. Won't fit in a blue bag. I need some 5-yard dumpsters and all this, so drive on, drive off. I was instrumental when I was on for the baler. At Harris Group balers come up. We didn't go with Harris Group. Steve Anderson was the rep. Eli Lucas was the department head. We did end up with a baler facility. I'd taken flowed to Homer and took videos of the baler up there, plus their recycling. They have 7 pickup points in the town. That's where everybody put their garbage. At the baler facility, they had a trough, conveyor, they had people recycling. Their garbage was in their millage. It didn't cost nothing, but the concerns are the elderly had somebody else take them and put them in the pickup points. These same things we have at the harbors right now. And that worked great. So I've been going over this, not so much, I'm not on the recycling program. I don't think they'd take my boxes right now. But we have forgiven our deficits for what? Mountain View Manor food system, Mountain View Manor assisted living, some of the enterprise funds, water, sewer, Harbor's gotten money, electrical money and all this. We have done this prior. We only have a 3-year month, not 6 months of reserves. So this is something new. I think yours was 4 to 6 months and you've taken 6 months. If there's a deficit, take it out of the federal general fund right now. Take care of that. Then you take every person in this community and you make them borough employees and declare them mission non-essential, send them home and pay them to stay home. Very simple, isn't it? You guys have a tough hole, but I guarantee you, you buy a truck, you buy the cans, and eventually you're going to have employees there. More employees because they can't handle it right now. Talk to the people that are doing the work, not the department head. I realize you got to respect Carl. I respect him too. But talk to the people who are doing the work. And then look at the other side. What are you saving now? And really, I don't have much. Okay?
Thanks, Paul.
And I expect a no vote from 5.
Anybody else want to testify in this public hearing on ordinance 2015-04? Raise your hand or we're going to close the public hearing.
Mark, this is Carl.
Yep, I was going to call on you, Carl.
Okay, I've got a letter to read. Should I read it now or during the following or later agenda item?
Let's do it right now under the public hearing,
sure.
Please.
Okay, is anybody else waiting to speak?
Oh, not right now, but please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Dear Mayor Jensen and Assembly, a little more than a year ago, you approved the proposal to go forward with a near-term commingled recycling program using blue bags and contracting out the collection services. Since then, the program has been quite successful with some minor tweaks here and there. Rivers Trucking succeeded PIA in April of 2014 as our collection contractor and has done an excellent job by all accounts. However, it is now time to review and reassess our recycling course. Due to the positive voluntary response to the commingling program, the Assembly mandate on enterprise fund reserve balances, and the current program's expenses of $115,000 a year, now is the time to determine the best long-term recycling program for Petersburg. If we do not decrease the expenses of the recycling program, we will have to raise garbage rates by 9% in order to pay for the recycling collection contractor and annual bag purchases. The current scheduled rate increase approved in 2012 will only be 2%. There is a way to continue the commingled recycling program at a lesser cost to the borough and ultimately the ratepayers by reducing baler facility hours, reassigning existing staff to recycling collection, and purchasing the equipment and carts needed to streamline the program. There's an immediate and substantial annual savings to the borough and the ratepayers. All that is required is a restructuring of the sanitation department's duties and the initial investment into the program. It makes monetary sense to reduce expenses and maximize the benefits of a climbing local recycling rate. Although the current proposal to purchase a third collection truck is weighty, the cost is spread out over several years by way of the sanitation department's contributions to the motor pool fund. The motor pool fund serves as a savings account that the department pays into annually, and this fund pays for equipment outright, with the forward funding of the next purchase spread out over the next 10 years. In addition, by restructuring sanitation staff duties, we will be utilizing our existing staff to serve hundreds of customers on daily recycling routes instead of a handful of customers at the baler facility. When sanitation staff audited the number of baler customers from different time periods of the year, our research indicated that the best time of day to close the baler facility is in the morning, as it would only impact about 5 customers a day. It's also beneficial to continue the morning recycling collection for continuity in serving our customers. Ruger's Trucking has proven that recycling collection can be done at 3.5 hours a day, and the borough can do the same. There is no plan to hire additional employees in the future, but even if the department did hire an employee, their salary and benefits would be about $20,000 less than the current Ruger's Trucking contract amount. This indicates that even if a future employee was needed, the borough would still be money ahead to transition the collection to borough staff. However, to restate, there is no plan or need to hire an additional employee to make the in-house recycling collection a success. Switching to carts will be cleaner and easier for all involved. The carts are like the current garbage cans on wheels, which are easy to move by tipping and rolling them rather than trying to carry a bag. Carts are also much less accessible to animals and the messes they can create in our yards and streets. Carts eliminate the inconvenient errands of stopping to get a supply of bags and sealing every bag, and the worry or reality of ripping the bags with cardboard. Some contamination of the recycling stream may occur with carts, but this won't be any different than what is possibly included in the current blue bag system. Let's make the move to a long-term, sustainable recycling program by transitioning to a cart-based system. I have previously provided a wealth of information to the Assembly in support of this transition, but to boil it all down, carts are essentially a durable, one-time purchase. Carts offer more convenience to our customers. Cart-based collection is highly efficient and won't result in additional sanitation employees, and carts will decrease annual expenses. If the borough continues to use blue bags and contract for recycling collection, customers will see a 9% increase in collection rates to pay for it, much more than the scheduled 2% approved in 2012. It's up to the Assembly to determine if ratepayers see a small increase or a large increase to accomplish the same simple goal, collecting our community's recycling stream. Signed, Carl Hagerman.
Thank you, Carl.
And Mayor, I'll be available. I'll stay on the phone and answer any questions later in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask you if you were going to hang in there, so that's good. One more chance. Anybody in the office that hasn't spoke already in the audience want to talk to this public hearing? Okay, state your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Arlana Coral, and I represent myself. I'm very much in favor of keeping the blue bag system with the current trucking, and if we need to save money, perhaps we should just reduce the dump hours without the city borough employees collecting the recycling. Just close the dump some, reduce the borough employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. No. As long as you get your hand up before I close the hearing, you're in good shape.
My name's Catherine Kowalski, and I'm representing myself, and I am a business owner. And I'm here in support of this program. I think it's been a great program. They're obviously very reliable. I like the public-private aspect of this. I think it's really important that we do this in this community. I think it's working. I have some questions, though, that I'm kind of concerned about, and maybe Carl can address these. I don't know. One of them is if the garbage rates are going to increase by 9%, if we keep the program as it is, what would they increase if we go to this more expensive route that's supposed to be spread out over 10 years? What will that rate increase be?
Actually, the numbers are available in Carl's proposal, and I asked the Borough Finance Director if his numbers were correct, and she said they were. It would actually save money with Carl's proposal. The 9% is generated from a mandate that the Assembly did, I think, in 2012 or 2014, that every department have a certain level of reserves in their budget. And to get to that, if we don't go with the proposed truck and the garbage can or the recycle can, we have to raise it 9% instead of the 2%. That's the reason for that. That was the explanation was given to me. So.
And another point that was brought up by Alana is that, you know, if we're only seeing 5 customers a day, how many employees are up at that baler facility in the morning? 2, 4?
That I couldn't answer.
It might be good to look at those wages and the differential on that too.
Right. We'll talk about this at the Assembly level and the deliberating.
Okay.
We'll just make your, let's continue making your comments and we'll address them later.
And the other question was, there's been, from switching from bags to carts, I don't know that I've seen a lot of waste and mess distributed around the community with the blue bags. I don't know if anybody else has, but they seem to be holding up quite nicely. Anyways, I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the recycling business for doing what they've done. I should hope and would hope you all consider at least another year or two with this program. I don't think there's enough time or information at this point to make a decision to move to something else. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more public testimony on this ordinance? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing on ordinance 2015-04 is closed. The next public hearing is for ordinance 2015-03, an ordinance providing for nuisances, a new chapter in ordinance 9.16. So, anybody want to talk to that in the audience about the that ordinance in the second reading tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to the next public hearing, and that's a public hearing on ordinance 2015-05, an ordinance providing for increases in short-term and transient mortgage fees and establishing fees for use of the commercial drive-down dock. You guys are still on the phone, whoever that is. Anybody in the audience want to talk to the, John? Yeah.
My name is John Murgis again, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm representing my business, Island Ventures LLC, the Scalby Boatyard. And get the glasses on here, I'll try to be brief. I have a concern with the timing, which is going to hit my commercial fishing vessel customers especially hard. And again, not again, but I've already been advised that my business isn't being targeted, so you don't have to tell me. I know it's not being targeted. Almost every haul that I make is not planned in advance, but is an impromptu decision. Every haul for long-term storage is for unique reasons such as emergency mechanical problems, sale of the vessel, no fish problems, medical problems, family emergencies, and on and on. With the new proposed rate structure, to get a decent rate requires a stall commitment for 6 months instead of the present 3 months. Almost every commercial fishing vessel that hauls out for the winter months goes in the water late May, early June. There's not much choice there because April and May are needed for maintenance and repair. So in the fall, if they need to get hauled, 6 months from early June is early December. Usually October is the latest I can safely block up a commercial fishing vessel. And so the vessel owner would have to forfeit 2 months of harbor stall rental or revert to the new $5 per foot rate, which would average to a $180 to a $300 penalty. So the vessel owner is caught in a catch-22 if he or she wants to haul for winter storage. And I don't think that's the intent of the proposed rate change. I've been scratching my head trying to come up with a solution here, but this is an ordinance, and so it's kind of hard to work around an ordinance. I think a good compromise would be to change the long-term rate to 4 months and the new short-term rate to 10 days to 4 months. There are also some innocent bystander casualties that would come with the proposed 6-month rate, and that's the transient commercial fishing vessels that fish here for 4 months approximately, and the burgeoning yacht pleasure craft group that likes to home port here for the summer months. I know these folks especially well. They are extra mobile and extra penurious. I think a rate increase would chase them off to other harbors. So I sincerely think there would be a net increase in harbor revenue with a 4-month long-term rate versus the proposed 6-month rate. Maybe there's other options there, and I'm not complaining about the rates themselves. It's just the unfortunate winter sets in usually the 1st of November, and to try to block up a commercial vessel after ground is frozen is really difficult and just dangerous. I did attend the Harbor Advisory Board meeting that discussed this in late January. The rate structure is complex. There's no way I could comprehend it right there impromptu at the meeting. Otherwise, I would have brought this up earlier to them. But until I got home and was able to go through the rates, then I realized, whoa, this is going to be a challenge for my business and many of the commercial vessels that get hauled out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mergus.
Mr. Mayor, is there any opportunity for comment?
When we deliberate on it. Anybody else want to talk to under the public hearing for ordinance 2015-05? That's for the increase in short-term harbor rates and a new fee schedule for the drive-down dock. Seeing none, that public hearing is closed. The next public hearing is for ordinance 2015-06, an ordinance adopting the budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. Anybody in the audience like to talk about that, the annual budget? Yes.
Hi there. My name is Susan Omer, and I'm the Director of Petersburg Mental Health Services. I came here tonight to comment on the value and the need for continued supports for our nonprofits and for our police department. And if I understand correctly, the proposed budget, I do believe that this assembly is doing the best that they can in a very difficult situation. The next few years are going to be very tough for all of us, and we'll all be adapting as best we can and being as creative as possible. It's scary. I mean, I'm definitely nervous about the coming years, but I know that historically this has been something that Petersburg has done very well. We've always taken pride in our ability to work together and make things work and find ways to, to put things together. And I think that that's going to happen again. I have to believe that. We make things work better than most other places. And I want us all as community members to remember that. I hope you'll listen to what the community values and find ways to support it. I also hope that people communicate with you here or by email or letters or on the street to say that supporting our nonprofits and the police is important, especially now, because otherwise how are you going to know that that's important to us? At Petersburg Mental Health, we're already preparing for the cuts we know are happening. This includes cutting 60% of our clinical staff. And while this will be a big challenge, I did want to take tonight and the few minutes that were allotted to say that our team wants you to know that we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to work really hard and serve people, our clients, as well as the police department and the hospitals and the schools and OCS as best we can in this new environment. And although our work and much of what the police and the EMS and the doctors in this town do is invisible, it's an integral part of the quality of life we enjoy in Petersburg. It's just that it's an irony that we can't talk about our biggest successes because we're not allowed to. I do not envy your positions as assembly members. You're trying to make decisions that directly impact all levels of our town. And it takes courage and commitment to serve, and I respect each and every one of you for that. I often don't remember to say that when I come up and speak, but I do ask that you do the best you can in this time of need to not cut nonprofit services or the things that increase the safety of the people in our town. And that includes things like KFSK and Mountain View Manor and the museum and the schools and Petersburg Mental Health and the police and hospital. I was trying to think of how to end this while I was sitting over there, and I'm not, blue bags, that's right. I'm not a great inspirational speaker. That's really more my brother's bailiwick. But I do want to say thank you for serving, and I feel like you're doing the best you can in a very tough time. We may need to all hunker down and just kind of hang tight and work together until our state and our community gets more stabilized financially. But I do believe we'll do it. And if our track record stays true, we're going to do it better than most towns. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Any other testimony under the public hearing for ordinance 2015-06? That's ordinance adopting the fiscal year budget for July 1st, 2015 through June of 2016. Okay, seeing no other hands go up, that public hearing is closed. I'd like to back up to the public hearing on the fee raise for the harbors. Had a letter we should read into the record. It's from George Bentel. As a fishing vessel owner, I think the planned moorage rate increase is a bit short-sighted. Though this may be seen as a revenue-raising proposal, I think that it will in fact have the opposite effect. I feel the transient commercial vessels that now flock to Petersburg during our busy fishing season will now find other ports to use, resulting in a loss dollars to the harbor and other town businesses. The same is true with pleasure crafts that enjoy summertime here. So as a fisherman, I operate on a tight budget. I have to contend with many increasing expenses. Increasing my moorage fees is not a sustainable way of dealing with the harbor's budget problem. So I thought I better read that into the record. So with that being said, the public hearings this evening are over. And that brings us to visitors' views related to tonight's agenda. Is there anybody in the audience with, I think we pretty much hashed over most of the stuff, but seeing no hands, we'll move on to visitors' views unrelated to tonight's agenda. Is there any views of people in the audience with issues unrelated to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, that moves us to board, commission, committee reports. There is none listed for this evening. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, and we could do that as one item. There's basically, on the consent agenda this evening, there are 6 liquor licenses for renewal. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the items on tonight's consent approve. Second? Okay, moved by Member Lynn, seconded by Member Walhuter to approve or adopt approval, I guess, of the liquor license renewal applications. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda, all the liquor licenses are renewed. Next item on tonight's agenda is the mayor's report. There's a few items there. Appointment, nominations to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Our Local Emergency Planning Committee has vacancies and is requesting the Borough Assembly nominate to the State of Alaska Emergency Response Commission the following individuals to be appointed to the vacancies. So without any objection, I'd like to appoint Erica Klunt-Painter as a community groups member and Gerald S. Laubin as the public at large member. So any objections? Okay, then we'll consider that done. Reminder, Board of Equalization. The Assembly will meet as a Board of Equalization beginning at 9 a.m. Monday, April 6th to hear appeals of the 2015 property tax assessments. Another item under the Mayor's report is the Supreme Court hearing in Juneau's appeal of the borough boundaries is finally going to get a hearing, and that will take place in Anchorage on June 17th at 10:30 a.m. And either myself, if I'm available, or the manager will attend to be there with our attorney, James Brennan. Let me back up a second. There's one other thing. One more thing I'd like to mention is it's very unlikely that I will be here for the meeting of April 6th at noon. So if you could make a note of that. But I will be able to call in, well, potentially be able to call in. There is no manager's report tonight, which brings us to unfinished business. And the ordinance for third and final reading tonight is the ordinance 2015-04, an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2015 budget for known changes. And that, as we know, includes the change to the recycling program. So I'd entertain a motion to adopt 2015-04 in its third and final reading.
Second.
Okay, moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Walter to adopt ordinance 2015-04. Any discussion? So I guess listening to the numbers and listening to presented by the staff and listening to all the public comment, I mean, we've had 280 people signed a petition not to do this. We have 20-some people this evening that testified to stay with the Blue Bag program. My position on it is that, and I've asked, like I said earlier, the finance director if Carl's proposed numbers are correct, and they propose that it's going to save the money, the borough money. If the borough transitions to the recycling cart system, the sanitation department will build up reserves to over $500,000 by fiscal year 2020. If the borough continues to use the bag system and contracted costs remain the same, the sanitation department will only have approximately $156,000 in reserves by 2020. And then we talked earlier about the 9% raise. I'm still concerned about this program in the future maybe needing another employee by the borough, so that's my position on it. So is there any other public comment or any other testimony or comment by the members?
Mayor, the only comment that I have to make is right now, Ruger is just tossing bags in the back of the truck, you know, and when you stop and have to start lifting cans to put them in the truck, I think Carl's numbers of 3.5 hours per day are unrealistic, and that's going to run into another employee, I think. I mean, I sat and tried to figure out what it would be. It's almost a half a minute for them to dump my garbage can by the time they stop, and then dump it where Ruger runs by my house, grabs the bag, throws it in the back, and they're at the next house before 30 seconds is up, you know. So I have more questions than I have answers for right now. And I'm going to be willing to revisit this next year, and so I'm not going to approve this change myself, because I want to look at it again next year and see where we're at and see if there is more room for improvement or maybe another alternative. Because if we pass this now, there is no other alternatives for us to consider. And I think we kind of threw this together really fast, and I really appreciate Carl and all his work that he's done. But I think there's probably other options that we should be looking at too, and not just have our hands tied with just this one. So I'm going to have to vote no on this one myself for that reason.
I think what we need to do is make a motion to amend the changes to the adjusting the fiscal year 2015 budget. So we're just talking about voting on the amendment, which would isolate the sanitation change in the recycling program. So I guess, before we have any more discussions.
I'll make a motion then. That we,
Okay.
Second.
And the motion is to not approve the budget change to go away from the blue bag recycling program, to buy the vehicle. I guess, to spend the money, $210,000 for a truck and $75,000 for.
Yeah, or maybe clear might be to maintain the present blue bag program until next year, one year from now, and then we relook at it.
The next budget cycle.
The next budget cycle,
Okay.
yes.
So that is how the amendment will be stated, and there's a second by Member Lynn, and Mr. Walter made the motion. So is there discussion on that? That's what we're discussing, is just the sanitation part, and then we'll vote on the main motion. Okay. All those in favor of amending the ordinance 2015-04 to stay with the blue bag cycles, will the clerk call the roll?
Cindy?
Restate that, please.
To stay with, if you vote yes, we will stay with the blue bag recycling program. Does that make sense to the clerks?
Yes.
For clarification, for 1 year, and we'll really examine this at
For
the
1
next
year,
budget
yeah.
cycle, yes.
So,
No.
Jay?
No.
Bob?
Yes.
Mark?
no.
John?
No.
Nancy?
No.
Kurt?
Yes.
Okay, the amendment to the ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2015 budget fails, so we will not stay with the blue bag recycling program. Is that what I, if we'd like, correct? Okay, now we're back to the main motion to adopt ordinance 2015-04 in its presenting known changes to the 2015 budget. Any discussion on that? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Kurt?
No?
Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, the main motion passes. Okay. Ordinance for second reading. The first ordinance for second reading is 2015-03, an ordinance providing for new chapter 9.16 nuisances. I'll entertain a motion to adopt that ordinance in its second reading.
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Greger to adopt ordinance 2015-03 in its second reading. Discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Bob?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2015-03 passes unanimously in its second reading. The next ordinance is 2015-05, an ordinance providing for increases in short-term and transient mortgage fees and establishing fees for use of the commercial drive-down dock. Entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its second reading.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Member Walhuter, seconded by Member Haverlick to adopt ordinance 2015-05 in its second reading. Discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mark?
Yes.
Cindy?
No.
Nancy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2015-05 passes 6-1 in its second reading, with Member Lagadakis voting no. Next ordinance up for second reading is ordinance 2015-06, an ordinance adopting the budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. And it's amended to add a section. And can you explain that, Debbie? Did you change some wording? Is that what we did?
Let's see. This is to add section 3B. I have to remember what I was doing here, which provides for the levy. Oh, yes. Jody, it has been amended Previous, Jody, can you explain it for me?
Sure. I wanted to make it a little bit more transparent that when you're approving the budget, you're also approving the property tax levy that's in the budget. And I just wanted, because that needs to be approved by ordinance, which this is the ordinance, but I just wanted to put that in there. It was in last year's, but last year at the same time you also approved the mill rate. And this year we cannot approve a mill rate until we go through the appeal process and have the Board of Equalization and know what the final assessed value is. So I should have put it in for the first reading and I didn't. No one's going to even notice it except for me. It's just more of a paperwork thing than anything. But yeah, it's just that you are, and we pointed out during the budget review process that the property tax levy is the same as it was last year and the prior year.
So the reason basically is because we've started the budget cycle earlier?
Yes.
Is that, okay. Any other discussion? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
John?
No.
Kurt?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
So ordinance 2015-06, an ordinance adopting the budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2015 through June 30th passes in its second reading, 6-1, with member Haverlick voting against it. That brings us up to new business. Consideration of a construction inspection contract for the Pump Station 1 Force Main Upgrade Project. I'd entertain a motion for consideration of this inspection contract.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by member Strand, seconded by member Lagodakis to approve this inspection contract for the pump station. And the amount is $118,000. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I got some concerns. Is that when I looked at the cost associated with this, there's a whole bunch of travel costs, and that we're going to bring somebody in from outside. We've got housing costs associated with this, and I'm not arguing for or against it, but it seems to me we did a library a while back, and we had outside contractors, contract inspectors. I agree with the idea of having contract inspectors, but why can we not have our own contract inspector on staff? And I don't mean a separate person. I've done contract inspection myself. You need some training and so forth. If it would be all right with you, I'd like to put this on for a discussion item for the next meeting, if we could, because I really think it's time that we look at our own staff to do some construction inspection in the future, at least get somebody trained. Is that?
Okay. We'll hold more discussion. This was put forward to us tonight to take action on
Yes.
this, I believe, right, Chris?
Yes.
That's what we were asking. And that, any other comments on this contract? I feel the same way Bob does. I mean, I feel we need inspection work on these projects, but I can't remember what the hours were proposed on this. From May to June, that's a month, and from June to July, there's another month. For 2 months, we're going to pay these people $118,000, and Bob brought it to my attention today. Member Lynn did that. It is on a grant, but it's a 70-30 responsibility, I believe, and we pay the 30%. Is that what? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Chris?
the grant will cover 70%, and the remaining 30% is going to be covered by a loan. So yes, we'll have to pay that back.
Right. So I would like to see if there's any way possible that, I guess if we award the inspection contract to this one person, they're not going to want to do 70% of it and have us do the other 30, but it just seems like it would be a money savings thing for the borough at some point. I did inspection work when I was right out of high school with a high school education on state jobs that were, fairly involved. And, if you could read the specs, and maybe things have changed, but so I guess it's the will of the assembly if they want to not approve this and discuss it later, waiting to get more information, or what was your proposal there, Bob?
I was asking that it just be put on the agenda for the next meeting, next assembly meeting for discussion.
We'll still take action on
Yes,
this, but then,
yes.
okay, I see what you're saying. We can do that. So I guess Any other discussion on this inspection contract? Clerk, call the roll.
John?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, so the contract passes unanimously, and it will be, this topic will be a discussion item for the next meeting under council discussion, assembly discussion items. I don't see any discussion items listed this evening. Under recognitions, I would like to recognize the late Ray Peterson for his service to the city at the time, from October 14th, 1985 until February 28th of 2006. I would also like to wish my condolences to his family. Ray was quite a prankster. I think he'll be missed all over town. You couldn't be in a room with Ray without having him trying to stir up some kind of a congenial, I would call it an argument, but and once he got under your skin, he just excelled. I mean, and he loved it. So I think we're all going to miss that. So is there any other recognitions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to recognize Patrick and Kimmy again for their firemen's volunteer breakfast. It was, a big success, and I know it's a lot of work for them, and I know the town really appreciates it.
Okay, thank you. Any other recognitions? If seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Yeah. Oh, back in the back.
I would just like to say something.
Sure.
Outside of thanking you for the wonderful 15 years of working here, I want to say what you did tonight was very admirable. You guys set a path a few months ago, because you know that this community is going to start having some financial problems. And you did right, in my opinion, on the Blue Bag program, on the sanitation part. If you just keep in, the words I want to leave with you is always keep in mind, whatever's the best for the community as a whole, that's the way you need to vote. I know political pressure can get hard. It looks like the majority of people are against this, but it's not true. It's unfortunate that we can't get enough information out to our public, that the decisions that are getting made here, the comparisons are made, they're actually solid figures. And when they start trying to look at bits and pieces of a thing, they do have the difference of opinion with you. But I'm proud of you guys. You stuck to your guns. You set a goal for finances and you stuck with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for all of your support over my short 9 years here, or 8.5, or whatever it's been. So, if there's no other recognitions from staff or Liz, you want to recognize us too? Go ahead.
Yeah. In addition to that, Mr. Mayor, of course, I just wanted to recognize Shauna Pitta-Rossi and Brandy Heppy for winning the Southeast Alaska Preschool Teachers of the Year award in Juneau this last week. So congratulations to them.
Nice. Nice. Okay, any other recognitions before I turn my head and don't see the next hand go up? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye.